Hey there, it's time for another Graphic Rehab painting demonstration. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Tim Conkling. I'm going to show you how to do this painting up here. It's a Van Gogh styled American flag in honor of 4th of July. So the first step is going to be taking some white, which I already have a little bit of red in there, but is going to be taking some white and covering everything that won't be blue in a base layer of white before putting the red over top. So I'm going to do that first with a large brush that you see here. I have a rag up here to dry it off with and clean it off with a little bit. I have some water over here to clean it off, and we're going to get started. So we're going to start kind of load the brush up. I like to use something that kind of load it once and then maybe brush the side off a little bit. But you want to load the brush good with a lot of white, and then come in here. It's about probably roughly a third of the way over will be white, and roughly a third of the way down. You can either go a straight edge, or you can make it a little wavy to match your lines if you'd like. But just want to start working from left to right, working a nice base layer of white in, getting some water once in a while so it's nice and wet. Run a little bit. Some water as we go along so we make this nice and wet, because we want something to blend our red into. And since I have a large canvas, I'm going to start blending it so it doesn't dry on me. So I'm going to take some of my red and just with the side of the brush start in a little sideways and a crisscross pattern, mixing in some red on the top so that it mixes and blends with that white undertone. It makes some nice brush stroke patterns. Every once in a while mixing in a full stroke. However you want the first line to be in terms of waviness, just start blending it in. Get a little more red, add some thicker red, some more powerful red brush strokes over top, loading up a little bit so you can see how I have a little bit of a pink underlayer, and then this red is becoming a lot stronger off that pink. Mixing in kind of crisscross patterns. I do a lot of my mixing on the canvas. And now after that, since it is drying kind of quick on me, I'm going to start in with my next layer. Again, working from left to right. I'm going to try to make this one a little wavier. Start a little bit more of a curve. Get a little bit of water when you can, when you need it. And then again, start mixing this with your underlayer. It just did dry pretty quick on me. Now I want to kind of bleed out some of these strokes into here. So I'll start doing that with the side of the brush. You can also, I tend to do a lot with a bigger brush, and with one brush you can also mix in a smaller brush for this. I have all my brushes in water. So I'm going to take some of the red, start brushing it in. Not blending it too much so that brush stroke creates a lot of the texture. Van Gogh has very strong use of brush stroke to create a lot of the effects. So we're trying to recreate that a little bit You can either do that with the large side of a large brush like I was, or with a smaller brush like this. If you're using a smaller canvas, it's a lot easier to just make a whole quick white base tone underneath without it drying too fast on you. This started drying quick on me, so I'm starting to mix in my red. I'm going to work my way down as I go, instead of the way I wanted to. So I'm happy with that for now. Can always go back once it dries a little bit. So I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit by dipping it in water, and drying it off on my rag, doing it again so it's nice and clean. So go back and get some white. Might pick up a little bit of your pink. That's okay. If you do, what you can do is kind of make it where your next line will be, so you waste that pink on the canvas. As you can see there, I got a little bit of pink is wasted where it's going to naturally be. Oh, picked up some more pink here. So this will go down along about a third of the way down is where the bottom of the blue will go. So I think after this, the pink should be out, but I can always do two. Although it looks like it came out. I'll clean the brush one more time. And then I'll go back in for my white. This to be a little thick. So it blends nice when I start going in with the red. Over here. One thing is a little swirl we have there. So that'll kind of put the start in here. It's like two little waves rolling off each other. So what you do is you come up with a little part of a sideways S curve, a little half S, and then you match like almost a full S, another sideways S coming around. Again, I'm going to get some of my red over here, let me brush up good, and start layering it in. And I want the top to be a little flatter, and then have it kind of curl in like that, and die off a little bit, and start mixing that white back out, turning that back into pink, and then come back around into here again. And this is why you want it to be nice and wet, so it blends a lot better than it is right now on me. But we can always make it work. A little bit of water like I just did helps. Sometimes using a smaller brush helps, but I tend to be quite stubborn. Just keep using the same brush until I completely butcher it and hate the artwork. Don't recommend it for those just starting out. For me, I enjoy the challenge and the frustration. Keeps me on my toes. And now what I did there was I started spreading it across with my brush wide and flat, and then as I got towards the end where I wanted a little more control, I went sideways. So you can start using the kind of wisps of the rough, not wuff brush, the rough brush, to start making some rough patterns in there. Looking at my sample again, I'm kind of mimicking the opposite of that sideways S we did before. And coming out the back end there, clean my brush, get some white, which is going to turn pink on me. So I can kind of blend this a little bit, which I think I will actually do with a smaller brush. Smaller brush, then smaller brush. And you can either go with a very small brush like we used just before, or sometimes just the next step down is kind of nice. What I'll do is, after getting it a little cleaned off, I'll load it up, and if you brush it flat against your paint like that to load it, it'll also flatten it back out. So you see how it was rough from cleaning it out. And if you just find the flat part of the brush to load it, just get a little paint, brush it flat against the surface, it'll straighten it back out. Now, so we're going to use this brush to kind of blend these two colors a little bit. You see how when they're wet like that, they do nice. You kind of wet it. And then as I load it, I like to press it in flat, just like when we were flattening it out, because it leaves that texture. And something you can also do to blend these is to actually use just water, create a kind of interesting effect. You see how that little bit is starting to create some nice effects. And we can load up with some white again to blend it. Let's come up here and start blending up here so we can finish our way down a little bit. And you want to bleed that pink into the white. There's not much texture in the white, so we're going to use the pink to add some depth and some variation. So we'll load back up with some white, kind of come back up here. Since that's drying a little bit, make my brush a little more wet. The drier paint, you can kind of create a little bit of effect with some water, although it will become runny like we just did. And you see that by drying the brush, coming back over that with some white, and using that run to add the bleeding. And now where my paint is drying a little more than I'd like, I can again use a little bit of water, a little less than I did before, to kind of pull out some of that dryness and add in some extra effects, some extra strokes rather. Which way to go, as you can see. I don't know if you can see, but I'll explain if you can't. What I'm doing is I'm mixing and varying to create different effects by going sideways with the brush flat or sideways with the brush long. So when it's flat, the wide part, the widest part of the brush is against it. When it's sideways, the white part is going with it. And we're going to come in and drop off some red there, kind of break up that pink. Now in my sample, I counted this all out, but I'm eyeballing all this here based off my sample. Sometimes you want to make sure you get some water. The paint is nice and wet. It spreads on smoothly. off my brush. Kind of doing this. See how far that paint will go, but as you can see, it gets dry as it gets towards the end. So I'm going to clean this and put it back in the water and back into my white. So clean off this brush. Start loading up some white again. I'm happy with the top. Start wetting this with some white. And you can use the kind of side of the brush. Depending on how wet the red is, it'll start to blend and bleed with the white you just put down. So you can start blending that edge, creating those brush strokes. You know, if you're using something like this with an edge, you can straighten your brush out a lot easier. And again, the white will the wet white will lift up a little bit of the red, create a little bit of a pink. And start blending that in. Using different variations of blends and brush strokes, blends and lacks of blend. You can make it as variable or as similar as you like. I like it to be different as it gets across. Some spots have different styles of brush strokes. Adds a lot of action, I feel like. But you can also add action by making everything all exactly the same. As you can see, as I've worked my way down, I've used different brushes basically for each band to highlight the different ways you can make the different bands. And I'm kind of almost out of paint, so I'm going to suck up the rest of this pink to kind of fill out this line. See, this is a lot softer of a blend here, since I'm using a softer brush and I'm brushing back and forth a lot more. So since we're getting towards the bottom, I'm going to try to make sure I get one solid coating over this. Try to get some of this pure white on top of here. Yeah. I'm going to go thick and wet with this. Little subdued swoopies here. Put in that white. I'm using a lot of crisscross strokes like X's to cover it. And just really coating it in. So it hopefully stays wet for the next few minutes. For the edge, if you're doing this on a canvas with a side, like a wrapped canvas, this is just a canvas board. If you're doing it on what the Great Divide supplies, it's a canvas board. But if you decide to do this on your own, with your own size canvas, a wrapped canvas, what you want to do is make sure you go down the side with your colors so you don't have to worry about a frame. I'm just going to wet this up real good one time with some water because it is drying pretty quick. I don't know why. So clean that off. go in here, we come in here. What is sometimes easy is to do the bottom one first, actually, so you know where you end. And so I'm going to try to do a fainter line, like a thin one. Since it's wet, it's making some nice blends and bleeds. Take these nice and pure red to start before it blends. Again, if you're not stubborn like me, you'd be getting a smaller brush right now, so you can control your brush strokes a little more. But I'm also showing how bigger brushes can create similar effects if you lightly use the sides and the roughness in the bristles. So now it's going to create this swirl here. Put that pink in, start mixing it. Also blend that line while it's wet a little bit. Okay, we got half an S, another full S. Water with it, so it wets that undertone, so it blends nice. And then count, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so let's start putting in some more hard reds. Using the side of the brush primarily here. Flatten it out a little bit. This is going to come like that. And come in here. So the whites come up like that. Let me get a little wet. That'll help blend it too. Without having to load it with more paint. If you're trying to conserve paint, you can use more water for blending if you don't care so much. You have the paint to spare. You want thicker effects, use more paint to blend. But again, I like to do a lot of mixing on the canvas. As you can see, I'm just getting pure colors and starting to put them on. And that way, some of the pure colors get left in. Very strong, vibrant swatches. And then other spots it blends, and it all blends relatively differently. So the piece changes as it goes a little bit. You don't get the same color across the board, because you're not making a new color each time. You're working with the same two base colors here, obviously, but it varies, especially when it's nice and wet like that is there. It varies a lot more, as if I was mixing the pink I used here and then putting it directly on and coloring all my pinks with the same pink that I mixed prior. But with a piece like this, a lot of the mixing comes with the brush strokes, where you glob a bunch on and then mix it in with the white underneath, or the water that you go pick up to wet your brush. If you pick up a lot of water like I just did, make sure you try to blend it far before it bleeds down. One way I sometimes like to work is actually on a tabletop and standing over my work, because then I can make it really wet and not have to worry about. I like to flatten my brush out here, I think, with a little bit of white to pick this up. But I don't have to worry about how wet I get it, because it won't bleed down. It will just stay in place. A couple more little swatches of red in here. Not sure if that's just because it's dry or what, but that looks a little dull to me, so we'll pure red will kind of mix it up nice. As you dry your brush, you can also brush it flat against it, so it'll flatten the brush back out. Like a couple deeper reds in there. These I'm leaving nice and thick. And as they dry, whatever texture is left behind, whatever thick paint is left behind, leaves a little bit of a texture and an effect in and of itself. Hopefully I'm not blocking too much when I do that. Try to fix this down here. For this, you want your brush to be nice and clean so you don't pick up any of the red and turn into a purple. So we're going to load our nice clean brush up. I'm just going to cover this with blue. I think it's easiest to work from your end over to where you can be a little rougher. So where you want a hard line that doesn't blend. And kind of working from there. I'll take a smaller brush to bead that a little bit. Kind of like with the white, you want it to be nice and wet. So what that drips and drabs into your other colors. I think this one I want to be a little less even than that one to kind of match the waviness of the painting. So I'm actually going to use now the side on my brush to leave this out and feather this out. Some brush strokes matching the kind of curve. Oh, you see how I picked up some red, which I don't like that. I don't think. Maybe I do. As a very wise man that I've watched quite a bit once said many times, that's what we call a happy little accident. Yeah, totally happy with that. Yeah, at first I hated it. Now it's like my favorite part of the thing. Also realize that I crossed up my hand pattern, my hand position, so I'm going back to being underneath what I'm making instead of over top or on the side of it. I find it's easier for me to lift off and create a thinner, more variable brush stroke, whereas this way where I'm kind of on top of my line, it's harder for me to control. So it's more, I use it more to cover a full area like that. And then I try to be below my line when I'm trying to control it more. See with the crisscross, I'm not caring if I'm on top of it, parallel to it. If I'm on top of it, parallel to it, or below it. I'm just trying to cover it. Here I do want to be above it, which is a little hard because it doesn't make as nice of a line. But I also need to see it, so I know I'm not going too far. So now I have most of my blue in. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush again, make sure it's super clean. Drop it on the floor. Super clean, no pink. So the pink will influence the blue. Now load it up to flatten it out like we did before. Flattening it in like that, brushing it flat against there. So again, normally a lot of times I want to be below my line. Might not work here though. Let's see. I don't want much white here. So I'm going to try to glob the blue on to cover that up. Blue is a little translucent of a color. So it shows what's underneath a lot more. So you need more layers of it to get a thicker color and block out what's underneath. I think for here I'm going to learn my lesson as I'm getting towards the end. Use a smaller brush, not that one though, because that I need for the stars. This one I think will be good. So I can control this. Lost all your blue you did. Stick that back in there. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to put in the stars. So now I'm not going to count because it's abstract. I'm not putting 50 stars up there. So you want a thin brush for this, small brush rather, sorry, one that you can get pretty much to a point. We're going to start putting our stars in. We'll go from the top. I'm going to put it nice and thick. Again, I'm going to not put 50, so put one there. It's a nice big dab. Put another one right there. Grab another one. Sit right there. And now, without getting any more, what we're going to do is kind of just circle around here, just letting the white kind of blend off and bleed off slowly. And same with this one. Just start circling out, spiraling out around the star, dropping some off in random spots. Doesn't really matter where. Just in some spots. Get some more. Put another star probably. You want to stagger your layers so it's at least somewhat accurate. So put another one there. And now, before going back for any more, we'll use this, since that's kind of dry around there, but use that excess, a little bit, what's falling off, to kind of come up here. Do that around those. You can put a little bit more if you want to make it look more like the Starry Night part of the sky, but put your next star in after loading up. And now we'll go back here, kind of spiral around him, bleed out. Some you can put fewer spirals. Let's put another star there. Like this one, I think I'm just going to put maybe one or two. Like less swirls than the other one, so he sticks out a little bit and also makes the other one stick out. And staggering our star, put another one here, put one maybe that spirals out a little closer. Again, doesn't really matter, it's all kind of random, depends on where your brush lands when it hits. Almost kind of picture it like a needle on a record. So now we have one there. I'm going to put my next star in, almost lined up with that one right about here. Some you can make really big like that one there. Some you can make a little smaller like that one there. And then again, use this excess to come around here. And this one again, I might only put a couple little swirls. And then put another star. I think I'll put a big one here. This one I think is right for a blending one, so I'll put a nice big one like that where I kind of even brushed into the blue a little bit. And now I'll come back here, swirl this guy. Since he's a thin one all by himself, I'll put some long swirls around him. This one again, I'll get a little more. This is the first time I think I've grabbed some and not made a star first. And since he's a big guy, he's going to have a couple swirls coming out of him. So what you do is you swirl and come off a little bit and then go back in closer, and as you come out, then it staggers the swirl. Big guy, you can also have longer strokes than the other ones and mixed with thinner strokes. Add some variation to it. Now go back in here, make some more stars. I think we want another big guy right there. Add some weight down over here. very close. And put a small one there. Put a small one there. Biggish one. Whoa, that's pretty big there. So again, swirl around. Sorry, got lazy and groggly. Swirling around. Bueller, swirling. Now this one again, go out a little bit. Come in closer, go out a little bit. Come in closer, go out a little bit, and then just start circling randomly. Couple highlights there, couple highlights there. This two. Now blend the blue and the white a little bit better. We are almost done, I'd say. I think what I'd like to do is put a little more thicker blues in here and there, and a spot or two. Do it with a small brush. Go back to my blue. Just like I added the red brush strokes, I'm going to do some blue. This one's a little more random. If you have a little white on there, it will create a little bit of a texture. Sometimes I like to use the brush on like a 45 from the canvas. Actually hold it with all 4 fingers, and it almost works like a palette knife then. And it creates a very random brush stroke effect. That can vary, and then I also like to twist it as I do it, because then it spins it and makes a different side active, rolls the paint off in some spots, streaks it across in others depending on which way you're rolling it. Just creates an all-around interesting effect. Sometimes you can dab it on. You just really want to experiment with how you can make different brush strokes, different ways of conveying different look or feel. And now I think we're pretty much done. Bid time. I'm going to ideally sign this. And the corner with some blue. Signing it, you're all done. You can let it dry, and then once it's dry, hang it up wherever you like to display it and show your artwork off. Happy 4th of July. Thank you for joining us. Follow Timmy at Graphic Rehab. Visit graphicrehab.com for more art and apparel. And to see more painting demonstrations, check out the Graphic Rehab YouTube channel. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.